More taxes.
We've morphed our way into education, Larry. Let's go ahead and get started.
I see that. I'm glad you clarified that.
I think it's about time. It's a specific question here. Arizona is always ranked low. There are very few surveys where we're not scraping bottom in one way or the other. How come? What's going on? Well,
I think part of it is the formula that federal government uses and ties dollars that they give back to us, the state, and how they measure our success or our failure. So that's a big part of it. And the ELL program, for example, and there's 151,000, approximately 13–14% of the K through 12 that have English language learning, which means the parent, one or two of the parents don't read or write English, and the child does. So therefore, we're responsible to get them at a certain level. And my understanding, we had an arrangement with the federal government that we'd have a 4-year window to bring that up, to get that in the English side. And we shrunk that down, the federal government did, to 1 year. So we get a lot of dollars from the federal government, therefore it's tied to that. But unfortunately, the way they measure us, and again, I'm getting redundant, it causes a problem because of the structure they do for the ones that are non-English. And it's a problem. Secondly, we do need to reform where we put the dollars that we have, and I would be more toward classroom first. Put it back to the teachers first.
Same question, Terry. The idea that Arizona never seems to get over the hump in terms of education studies and education research. What's going on?
Well, Arizona is failing at schools and failing our children. We have a situation here where we're dead last in the nation in resources per child. And that's an abomination. We've got to change that. And the production is, according to No Child Left Behind, we're 46th at the 4th grade level, and we're about 40th at the 8th grade level. In math, we're behind only DC in terms of production of kids learning. As Barry said, what we're concerned about is making sure that our young people are ready to compete in an increasingly competitive world market. According to Dr. Crow, only 25% of high school graduates in Arizona are ready to go to college. That's terrible, and we have one of the highest dropout rates along the way in the nation. So we have to work very hard on making our public education system much, much better. I have a goal to move from the bottom 10 to the top 10 in 10 years. That's the kind of focus we need, because a commitment from the governor to public education is what's going to get us out of this economic mess, and nothing short of that will do it.
Governor, ideas regarding education. It's got to be more than holding back third graders and giving schools letter grades.
Well, but that is very, very important also. I mean, that is part of the education reform that we've instituted. Bottom line is that we need to move in a direction of which we had begun with putting our framework or our blueprint together with Race to the Top. We brought everybody to the table, and we didn't do so well the first round, but in the second round, Arizona came up 19th out of 32, and we now have that footprint, and we will continue moving down there with those new ideas and those new reforms. And it is important that parents know exactly how well their schools are performing, and it is important that they understand that it's easy to get that it's easy enough to understand and get away from those other kinds of designations. And social promotion is something that's no longer going to happen in Arizona. We need to reward, I believe, those good teachers that inspire us. And I think that we have, and we'll start requiring superintendents to have their salaries based on 20% on job performance.
Absolutely.
Those are the kinds of things that we really need to do, and we will continue moving in that direction.
We need to reward the best teachers. That's where our money, that's where our reward should go. But we're not going to reform education by taking $1.1 billion out of the K through 12 budget. We're not going to reform education by getting rid of the one thing that all the scientific studies say works, and that's all-day kindergarten. So when Jan Brewer got rid of that, she set our schools back significantly. Our kids don't have a chance.
I hate to bring this up because I'm kind of changing the subject again, but Terry keeps talking about all the cutting and what we need to do and when we need to get it done. Terry, where's your plan? Where are you going to get this money?
My plan is out on the website. We're going to grow our economy. That's exactly what needs to be job one.
It is no plan. You have no plan.
Well, you're the governor. You need to have a balanced budget, and you haven't done that yet.
Terry, Terry, you know, you're the Attorney General. You have to have a balanced budget. Read the Constitution. You should know that. Of all people, you should know that.
I've read the Constitution, and that's
we
why
balanced
it surprises
the budget.
me
Make no doubt, we
that
balanced
at the end
the
of
budget.
2009, your budget was $450 million out of balance. When you finally got a budget in 10, it took 10 months to do it, so you kind of missed the deadline. It was $150 million out of balance.
Terry. We balanced the budget. You're not going to get away with that. We balanced the budget.
Check your facts. You haven't balanced the budget yet since you've been governor.
We have balanced the budget.
The first year you were $450 million out of whack. The second year that you signed the budget was $150 million by your
And you, as the top law enforcement,
experts.
why didn't you do something about it if that was the case? You
Because
know the
what the
Constitution, we have to
says
balance
is
the
not-
budget, and we balanced the budget.
No,
and
every
then,
governor
after
in
the
the
budget was
history-
balanced, then we had the Obama administration blow a hole in it because they demanded more spending.
Okay.
Get your
what
facts
you did
straight,
was
Mr.
borrow
Goddard.
$1 billion. You
Get
borrowed
your facts straight,
200.
Mr. Goddard.
Okay.
Tell me where you would get the money to make up the difference. What is your plan, Terry? What is your plan?
Well, you need to have a balanced budget. Every governor.
Yeah,
in
you
the
need to have a
history-
balanced budget.
Okay,
Start
okay.
there.
I feel
Every
it.
governor
Hold
in the
on.
history of Arizona
Hold on,
has
please,
balanced
Terry.
the budget
Terry, please
until
stop. Barry, I want you to get
Jan
in on this.
Absolutely. You know, they're talking, we've gotten way off subject. We were talking education here, and now we're talking about whether she balanced it or not, and I would say absolutely not. Because you can't say you balanced a budget by adding another $70 million to it. All you've done is preserve the state. But realistically, as a governor, we've got it in the education thing. We've got to stop focusing on just the welfare school system, the government schools, and start looking at the education of the populace, which is something that I hold very dear. I mean, we look at it, Brophy, right up the road, for crying out loud. I think we pay less than $6,000 a year, and yet the state doubles that and ends up with an inferior product. And it's not the kids. It is not the kids, it is the institution that we have got to reform, and we've got to care about it in a bigger sense and encourage education at all levels, from all sides, from all possibilities, be it homeschooling or sitting by the fireside. All I'm interested in is smart kids.
Larry, sitting by the fireside sound good to you?
For education, read
Yes.
a good book. It certainly should help us. I agree.
Okay, all right.
Like Abe Lincoln,
That
by
was-
the
I was going to
fire,
say, that was
looking
easy
into
enough.
the,
That's what I was thinking.
Let's go to health care. And Terry, you did not want Arizona to join the health care reform lawsuit. And that health care reform, federal health care reform, looks like it's going to hit Arizona and hit Arizona hard. First of all, and it still seems to be a moving target right now. But those who wanted you to join the suit are looking at maybe $11 billion over the next decade, costing the state in terms of health care to get in line with federal health care. Why did you not join that suit?
Well, in the first place, I read the suit and felt that it didn't stack up as a legal proposition, but we would have been the 20th state. The courts are going to decide whether or not there's a constitutional problem here. I happen to think there's not, and we shouldn't waste Arizona resources on something that is a vain and very political effort to just continue the fight in Congress into the courts. But the bottom line is there are many things about healthcare reform which benefit Arizona. At the end of 10 years, we're $2 billion ahead with healthcare reform than we would be without it, according to the Joint Legislative Budget Committee. So those are the facts. And it does some things that I really applaud. It allows kids to stay on their family insurance policy until they're 26. It means that you can't throw somebody off who has a pre-existing condition. It means that seniors get dental care, which they desperately need. These are things that help to make health care affordable to as many people as we possibly can. So it's not perfect, but it certainly is moving in the right direction. And Arizona, after 10 years, is $2.3 billion better off than they would be without it.
Better off than without it.
No, I immediately filed suit against the federal government on Obamacare. First and foremost, I think it is unconstitutional, as well as 22 other attorneys general. The bottom line is we simply cannot afford it, and it is inherently wrong for the federal government to tell the people of Arizona that you have got to buy something, and if you don't, we're going to penalize you. Today, we can't even afford the health care that we provide in the state on our Medicaid program. We can't sustain it, and we provide probably the very highest standard of access, we call it access with Medicaid dollars, than anybody else in the country. And to continue to have the Obama administration and Mr. Goddard to continually want to up the ante and increase the benefits to people that simply can't afford it is inherently wrong, and the bill is inherently unconstitutional,
Governor,
and we will win.
Governor, you know perfectly well that the costs you're talking about have nothing to do with health care reform. They're part of Proposition 204 that was passed by the voters of Arizona, mandated on you. It's not something you're doing out of generosity.
That's only
it's
one
something
piece
that
of
the
it.
voters
That's
of
only one
Arizona
piece of it,
said
Terry. That's
would
only one
happen
piece
in the
of it.
future. No, the only other piece is kids care. And kids care is something that I personally cannot understand how you could have vetoed kids care. I mean, excuse me, how you could have eliminated a program that takes almost 50,000 kids who otherwise wouldn't afford medical insurance and knocks them off the rolls so they end up in the emergency rooms.
And Terry,
I think that's just mean and
Terry,
hard-hearted and ends up being incredibly economically destructive for the state of Arizona.
And Terry, how would have you paid for it? Give me your plan.
Right now,
where would have you generated
here's
the money?
The plan.
Okay.
It was given to you by the voters of Arizona when they popped 204, and you can't, by your action, simply say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're not going to follow that one." You'd have to get the voters to consider it, as you're trying to get rid of first things first and get rid of going smarter. You've got to do the same thing with Prop 204 if you plan to cut the program. It's not Obamacare, it's not health care reform that's causing this problem. We're going to have to meet the standards that Arizona voters
Terry,
set for us.
How do we afford all this great, big, wonderful
first
government that you want?
First, we're going to go to work
how
to build
are you
our
going
economy
to
and bring the jobs back to Arizona that have been lost in your administration.
Terry, you need to tell us facts. You need to give us a plan. I mean, all this
I have
gibberish.
given you a plan, and you have
you haven't.
failed to balance a budget, and you
No, you
failed to
haven't.
put a
You
jobs
haven't. You
plan
have
on the
not
table.
given us a plan. You just talk about spending and how horrible the cutting is.
Governor, every
we
budget
need to get
I've had to
government under
maintain, I
control.
have balanced, and I've balanced on time. As Attorney
Terry,
General and as Mayor of
cut,
Phoenix.
you're cut out of the same cloth as the Obama administration. Bigger government and more spending.
Governor,
All right,
I don't know
Barry,
where you get that.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw the whole Obama campaign more from health care for the indigent into health insurance for everybody. And that was absolutely absurd. Doctors have told me if we just get government out of our health care completely, we can lower the prices by 60 to 70%. Just get government completely out of our private business. We wouldn't even need insurance. We could afford it out of our hip pocket. It's absurd. If we should provide anything as the state administration, it should be the county hospital system reinvigorated. If you've got a need, it needs stabilization. We're not going to leave people bleeding on the sidewalks.
Okay, the idea that Obama health care reform is absurd. Agree?
That was the original question. I just wanted to add in on that. I think it's a state's right. Health insurance is a state's right, not for the federal government to decide. It's we the people should decide how we're going to live, how we govern ourselves. It should be a state issue, number one. Number two, I do believe, though, we live in the greatest, one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And we should be able to find a way to develop affordable health care. Maybe not by government, but certainly in the private sector. And therefore, I think government should put the pressure on. We should put the pressure on the private sector to come up with a better solution for affordable health care.
Okay, I want to shift to a terrible incident that happened in northern Arizona, the escape of some prisoners from a private prison facility in Kingman with tragic consequences, allegedly in New Mexico. This was from a private prison, and you have expressed confidence in private prisons, did so even after the escape. Are you still confident that private prisons are good for Arizona?